Okay,
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Good. Okay, we'll get straight into it. We're here for, I've got a bit of feedback here. We're here for a application from Clocken Limited to do with the KFC at Old Mount Road, Dunball. We'll start off by appointing a chair. Do we have any nominations for chair?
Yeah, you.
Okay, can we have all those in favour? Okay, good. Thank you. Any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Chair. We've received apologies from absence from Councillor Simon Coles, who was meant to be sitting on this hearing today, and in his place, Marcus Kravis is substituting.
Thank you. Any declarations of interest? No. Okay, I'll just go through the basic format of the meeting. Basically, everybody gets a chance to speak and to ask questions in turn. If everything could go through the chair, I'd be grateful. If you could leave your cameras on, that would also be helpful, because it is I'm echoing back at myself. I don't do anything about that, Lee. Everybody will get an opportunity to speak, so if you could go through the chair, and as it is a virtual meeting, I would like everybody just to have their cameras on, because if we were present, we would do so. Okay, so we will start with asking the license. Oh, could you put your phones to silence as well, please? Can the licensing officer please present their report?
Morning all. Right, so an application has been made by Clocken Limited in accordance with the Licensing Act 2003 for the grant of a premises licence in respect of the KFC at Old Mount Road at Dunball. The premises acts as a restaurant, takeaway and drive-through situated near Junction 23 of the M5 motorway. Within the immediate locality of the premises is a Starbucks, an Asda Express with a petrol filling station, and a housing estate located to the north of the premises. The location of residential properties in proximity to the premises can be seen at Appendix 5, which is on page 27. Within the surrounding area, there is also a Costa, McDonald's, a Shell petrol station, and also a HPC park and ride. There are other businesses located on nearby industrial estates also. The premises licence application has been submitted with a view to provide late night refreshment only from 11 p.m. till 5 a.m. daily. The premises licence application can be found at Appendix 1. A plan of the premises can be seen at Appendix 2. A summary of the proposal can be found at Appendix 4, which encompasses proposed conditions and also confirms there will be no customer access to the restaurant after midnight. The police were content with the proposed conditions put forward by KFC, and no comment was received from Environmental Health. On the 15th of October, a representation relevant to at least one of the licensing objectives was received by licensing from Puriton Parish Council, making reference to the prevention of public nuisance and public safety. The objection highlighted concerns regarding noise generated from additional opening hours and lack of sanitary facilities available overnight. The agent was notified of the objection on the 16th of October. Tens were applied for to cover Fridays and Saturdays throughout October from 11 p.m. to midnight. No complaints had been received. Today's subcommittee have the following options. A, grant the application to grant the premises licence. B, modify the conditions of the licence by way of altering, omitting or adding any new one. Or C, reject the application in whole or part. Thank you.
You're on mute, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Alex. Sorry, I wish to apologise because I forgot to introduce anybody at the beginning, and I should have done that. So I'll just do some quick introductions. I won't introduce everybody, but I am Simon Carswell. I'm a Somerset councillor for Street. Marcus?
Hi, I'm Marcus Kravis. I'm Somerset Council for the division, of Dunster.
Tony?
Councillor Tony Robbins. I am councillor for Somerset
at Mendip Hills.
Alex is the legal officer. Lee is the Democratic Services officer. Kate is the licensing officer. And everybody else, I won't ask you to introduce yourself, but when you speak, you can introduce yourself just to say who you're speaking on behalf of. Okay, thank you very much.
So, Mr. Chairman, can I I'm just looking at the names on this list, and I recognise everybody except Daniel Mumby. Mr. Mumby, can you say who you're here to represent, please?
I'm the local democracy reporter based at the Somerset County Gazette.
Okay, your press. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, sorry, I did know who Daniel was, but I let you ask, Alex.
Always good to check.
Right, we'll leap straight in there. So, do we have any questions specifically of the licensing officer? If you could just put your hand up if you do, or shout. If not, we'll move on to the next part. Okay, thank you.
I've just stuck my hand up.
Okay, sorry, Marcus. Yes.
Oh, it hasn't gone up. Oh well. Anyway, yeah, quick question. You gave a big long list of other premises that were in that area. I think you mentioned McDonald's, etc. And I noticed, I think, is there Greg's on there as well. There's also an Asda as well, isn't there? If my recollection serves me right. And I've just wondered about, do we know what their opening times are? Because I noticed that McDonald's only isn't open all through the night at the moment. Do we know what their opening hours are? Or have we had any complaints about any other businesses or that area?
We haven't received any complaints in regards to the area. The Asda Express does have a premises license. I'm just pulling it up to see what their timings are. So they are open 24 hours a day, and they're licensed for late night refreshment from 11 p.m. till 5 a.m. and they can supply alcohol 24 hours a day. We haven't received any complaints.
Okie doke. And quick question, you said about the neighbouring premises. It was my recollection is as well, and I think the photographs show this, that there's a significant amount of trees and foliage between them and the premises. Is that right? And it was years before. So yeah, and that those trees and foliage, that's basically, you wouldn't know there are any houses there, would you? I think, and I suppose is that vice versa as well.
I would presume so. Obviously, the Google map image looks to be quite old because there's development has been completed, I believe, there. So I'm presuming that the trees are still there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions of the licensing officer? No. Okay. We'll move on to the applicant. If the applicant, which I believe will probably be Matthew, will it, speaking on behalf of the applicant?
So yes, it will, please.
If the applicant could present their case and call any witnesses. Thank you, Matthew.
Yes, good morning. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Committee. My name is Matthew Phipps. I'm from TLT Solicitors. I'll be presenting the application this morning. I'm not proposing to call anyone as witnesses. I think solicitors do well to remind themselves they're not in court when they're doing a licensing hearing, but obviously if you have questions and it's more appropriate for one of the team to answer, then I may well defer to them. That is Breda Nasiri, who is the head of asset protection based in the head office for KFC, and she's accompanied by Vincent Maguire, who works within her team and has taken responsibility for licensing applications. The way that I propose to do it, if it is acceptable to you, is that I have produced a written submission, which is in your agenda pack, is the supplement 2, which is effectively 3 or 4 sides of written observations about the application. And what I would like to do, if it was acceptable, is just canter you through those. I appreciate you'll have all had the opportunity to see the papers before now. It's agenda item 6, if you have one unified agenda. But it came to me certainly as a second supplementary. And if I will, I'll just canter you through that, and then obviously happy to take any questions that you may have. So Submissions are set out a structure, and I'll follow the structure. We enclosed and attached a series of documents for your consideration. Those are supplementary agenda 1, and I'll leave you when you come to retire to have a look at those if you've not had a chance to look at those before now. But there's a fairly comprehensive introduction to KFC. I suspect that you are all familiar with the KFC brand, which stands for Kentucky Fried Chicken, but that document is included as we don't want to take anything for granted and be presumptuous. There's a document setting out our commitments to being a good neighbour. There's a screenshot of some of our late night licensing training, which is a programme that we run for managers and staff. There's a photograph of the premises. The photograph of the premises may actually be a bit more helpful than perhaps I first thought it was going to be candid, because just picking up on Councillor Kravis's comment, if you go to the photograph, which is on page 41 of supplementary agenda 1, although I think that this photograph was provided landscape, and so the photograph's a little concertinaed because of the way in which it's been reproduced. You'll see the trees on the left hand side, car park on the right, trees on the left. So I think just in answer to the question, do they still exist, the answer is yes. And if you were to scroll up to page 39 of the supplementary one, you'd see a Google Earth plan that's just slightly further back than the one that's produced in the agenda, which sets out the various premises. I think that Councillor Kravis has identified the industrial estate, McDonald's, Foster, etc. Anyway, be that as it may, so the applicant, KFC, are a national, indeed an international restaurant business. They have 1,000, slightly more, premises in the UK, of which this part of the business operates about 300 premises. The other premises operated by franchisees. And of that 300, 75, although candidly it will be slightly more than that as we have been making a number of applications recently, have premises licenses operating into the later hours after 11 o'clock as the licensing regime obliges. The existing operation, apart from the photographs and the Google images, is set out in these submissions. A little just detail. There's a team of managers, a significant team of staff. They are supported by a field-based operations team, that's to say area managers, for those of you familiar with perhaps how pub companies and so forth work, and then a head office facility led by Breeder on this call. As paragraph 311 of the agenda on page 13, you'll see that there have been no complaints about this business since it opened at all. The application is in line with many other applications that we've submitted, but the important point perhaps for to attend to the representation is that there's no customer access to the premises after midnight. It will be for delivery or collection in the drive-through only. We provided a schedule of conditions which are set out in the agenda, touching on training, CCTV, an incident log, health and safety conditions, driver code of conduct, and so forth. And we engaged with the officers, as your policy recommends. Prior to the submission of the application, we undertook pre-application consultation through your licensing authority. We've not had any suggested amendments to our operating schedule at all. And as the licensing officer was good enough to highlight in the report and this morning, police are happy with the proposals that we have made, as are, it would appear, environmental health. We did apply for a number of temporary event notices. Fair to say they're not as extensive as the application before you today. And we have then one representation from the parish council, who I see are represented today. What the representation says is that there is noise emanating from the site currently, and there is, as I read, a presumption that that noise will extend into the late night and continue. Just to be clear, we don't accept there's any noise. from the premises. We made the point about complaints, and we certainly haven't had any engagement with environmental health at all. The premises is next to the A39, and further down the road is the M5, as you'll all be aware. The access into the development is not by the residents. It's effectively off the roundabout. It doesn't provide for a volume of premises that the A39 would provide, but we do have vehicles coming into the site. Some stop and park and go into the restaurant. Some go through the drive-through. But it's not, I'm afraid, accepted that the mere existence of the vehicles in that area could possibly fairly be said to create a nuisance, bearing in mind there would be thousands of vehicles going up and down the A39 and the M5 all hours of the day and night. If the suggestion, the representation doesn't make it clear, is that the extract system is in some way noisy, then that isn't accepted either, I'm afraid. Again, we've not had any complaints. It was serviced in November 2025. Everything is in good order. Everything is suitably attenuated. It's not our view that that creates any noise at all. And bluntly, we don't really know what else it could be. The representation is respectfully very short. It simply makes an observation about noise, but doesn't really tell us more. We do wonder, and forgive me that I am wondering in front of licensing committee, not very attractive for licensing solicitor to do that, if it was going to be suggested that the ordering point was in some way loud, so that when you pull up in your car, you make it your order, there is a microphone right by the car window, again, as you'll probably all be familiar, which will allow you to order. That's not been an issue of complaint or concern, but that might be suggested as the point of noise. Well, in which case we turn it down, very simply. I mean, we don't accept it does create a nuisance. The proximity of the traffic and the distance between us and the residents and the screening between us and the residents, we can't imagine that that's right. But as I say, I'm wondering, trying to find solutions, candidly, to the issue. It's also suggested that there is litter. To be fair, it's put under the public safety licensing objective, but I don't think your legal officer will advise you later, but I don't think it's fair to say it's public safety. That's about the safety of people who are specifically on the premises. But there's bottles of urine said to be left in the area late at night by those who are staying overnight. Well, one thing we can be sure about is they're not our customers, because we're not open late. We all know we're not open late, because that's why we're appearing in front of you this morning to seek a license, and bearing in mind that each application has to be considered on its individual merits. I'm struggling to see the legitimacy of that point, but nonetheless, we have lavatories, and our lavatories will be open until midnight. All of the customers that would come to our premises would be able to use our lavatories, and so I'm struggling candidly to see what the issue is there. I mean, that may very well be, to be fair, a legitimate complaint, but it's not a legitimate complaint that can fairly be directed at us. Candidly, it appears directed at ASDA, but then I'm sorry to say, without being unkind, that's a matter for ASDA, not a matter for us, and you'll all be familiar, each application on its individual merits, part of your policy, the guidance, the law. The location point, if I might just invite your attention just toward, it's page 39, I think I've touched on it, of supplementary 1. Just give a little context, both the proximity of the A39, the access route onto site, and where the residents are behind the copse, and in many cases then behind a garden. And what we are concerned with this morning is the likelihood of the licensing objectives being undermined by the operation of this premises. And as I say, we are respectful of the fact there's an objection, but we are struggling to see how it could fairly be said to be likely that the public nuisance objective would be undermined. The materials touch on the issues of litter. If it's going to be suggested that our customers are in the habit of leaving bottles of urine in the area, well, we litter pick all the time, all around our premises, car park and immediate vicinity, and so that would be attended to. And the whole of our space, including the car park, is covered by CCTV. There's in the representations, I've just touched on the law and the guidance. Just in terms of the law, a couple of observations. One is just that the parties speaking to a representation must focus on the representation, nothing new to arrive today. The guidance touches on public safety, but also, perhaps for the benefit of your legal officer, I have raised paragraph 912. I see Alex smiling, so she's only too familiar with it, as I know, actually. But in simple terms, for the benefit of committee, what that says is that generally one would regard the responsible authorities as the experts in their field, and I would suggest to you that they're usually also fairly described as the custodians of the licensing policy. So if the primary complaints, which seem to me are antisocial behaviour through bottles of urine and or noise, if environmental health and the police are satisfied with the application, that's a matter of some significance, I would suggest. But I would also raise, which I have not put into the submissions, because candidly it did not exist when I drafted the submissions, because this matter was adjourned from November, is there's a new part of the policy, paragraph 1.18, which does invite licensing committees to consider economic development and growth in regard to all licensing applications, which is a recent revision to the national guidance. Then there's some comments about your policy. I'm not here to patronise you by telling you about your own licensing policy, but it does invite us to engage with officers in advance of an application, paragraph 2.11, 4.13. It talks about the significance of officers' advice at 2.6.1, and then it's a modest point, but it is perhaps a point that it's fair to flag. Your policy also does seek to encourage operators of food businesses to package their food with labelled or logoed materials such that it could be identified as being theirs. And again, I'm not presuming anything about your knowledge of KFC, but we do that. I think it's fair to say on pretty much every single item that might leave the restaurant, it would have our logo. And so if we did create litter, if that's going to be suggested, you would quickly know that it was us. There are then some conclusions in the materials. Candidly, I hope they rather speak for themselves, but we're a very experienced operator, experienced at late night premises, no officer objections, plenty of company support for the business, no complaints at all about the operation before now. And I suppose the final point to make is that if you had any residual concerns about the application, which I'm inviting you not to have, but if you did have, then the review protocols are entirely appropriate and set out for precisely that procedure to bring us to account if we were to fail to deliver. So I hope that that's neither too quick nor too slow. I hope that's a fair canter through the materials, and we'll be inviting you to grant the application.
Thank you, Matthew. Marcus, do you have any questions of the applicant?
Thank you, Chair. I've got a couple of points actually. Thank you, Matthew, for your very comprehensive document and very useful. What my question was, because looking at the actual application, and it says, I think it says delivery drivers will follow a strict code of conduct, but there's not much, what's the word I'm looking for, meat on the bone of that. But then I suppose the question is, are there any planning restrictions to your deliveries anyway at this moment in time? I mean, could you take deliveries in the middle of the night?
Yeah, let me 2 points. I'll take them both if I may. In terms of the code of conduct, there's sort of 2 levels of conduct, if you will. First of all, there's a sort of national contractual conduct obligations that arise with and there are lots of delivery companies, but Uber Eats and so forth. And then we effectively oblige good conduct. No engines idling, park sensibly, don't congregate, use litter bins, don't stand near residential areas where that's appropriate. I appreciate that doesn't apply here. Then in the context of the second part, that's exactly right. If the license is granted today, we will need to follow up with a planning application in the fullness of time, and that will attend to the issues contained within planning.
Okay, and I suppose one other question, well, I mean, I've seen your document and your training. I haven't actually printed it out because it was so big and I can't look at it at the same time because I'm on my iPad. But I assume your training's up there with the likes of McDonald's, etc., etc. I mean, your big companies. I've experienced myself McDonald's training many years ago, admittedly.
Sir, it would be remiss of me to answer the question no other way than this. I hope that theirs is up with our standards. I can't comment on those, not knowing it, but I mean, I'm saying it with a smile, but you get the point.
That's very true. And I've got one final, because I think one of the concerns is that we've all, if you go to the southeast, you've seen it. There's service stations, and albeit this isn't a service station in name, but you could argue it's going that way, of young people, both male and female, late at night, not much else going on in Bridgwater. Oh, we'll all go to KFC, get a drive-through, sit in the car park, and sit there, doing what young people do with the fast food in the middle of the night. How would that get dealt with? Because obviously, by looking at the application, you're looking at, well, actually, this is aimed probably at a lot of passing traffic in the middle of the night coming from a certain construction site, and I can fully understand the commercial reasons for it. But how would your applicant deal with that knock-on effect of suddenly hanging out at KFC at 2 o'clock in the morning is a cool thing to do?
So yes, well, I mean, candidly, obviously, because we've got 75 other licensed premises, they're not all drive-throughs and they're not all at remote locations. It's fair to say that. But that's experience that we have. We have a variety of procedures and measures. Because our CCT covers the car park, we can see exactly what's going on in the car park at all times. We've got other procedures such as a TANI announcement system based within the premises to advise customers who are outside if we need to. And we've got a team of staff within the premises, who would look to address things if they arise. The in-town complaint, if that's the right phrase, sometimes is that people congregate in and around the seating and so forth outside. If someone drives to the site, parks in the space, eats their food, drops their litter off appropriately and drives away, candidly, we don't see that as undermining the licensing objective. If they've got their music blaring and their windows open, we have to intervene because it's not acceptable. It's not acceptable to us, won't be acceptable to the residents, but it's just candidly about good management.
Just one final point, and it's on the same point, of course, because obviously, knowing the site a little, the actual KFC car park bit isn't particularly large, but of course, your applicant only actually has control over, I suppose, their bit of car park, where actually there's an awful lot of other parking spaces in the vicinity. But there's an argument there that they could have left your premises by then.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to abdicate responsibility by simply saying, well, once they're off the car park, they're nothing to do with us. I mean, that's just not the approach that we would adopt. And I know that there's a volume of supporting materials, but I hope the one point that comes across is that the one significant control that is on this business that sits really sort of on its shoulder is brand standards. We can't do anything that is going to undermine the brand in its general sense at one location. There's nothing in it for us there. There's no benefit whatsoever. And so we would, if we needed to, we would work with other operators in the vicinity and engage with them in order to agree how to manage customers if that became an issue. So I don't want to say no, they're not ours at all. But mean, the volume of customers late at night at these premises, I appreciate, is unknown because it has not traded late. But that our car park would likely be full late at night, I suspect it's fair to say that would be few and far between in terms of occasions. The significant majority, I suppose, of the point is significant majority of customers, and obviously the entire majority of the entire population of deliveries leave. Some stay, but the great majority leave.
Thank you. I mean, one final question. Sorry, Chair, to keep going on, but yeah, I do believe it's good to deal with these things as thoroughly as we can. Obviously, you know people in the restaurant after midnight. Now that's a commercial decision. I'm half tempted to say ask why, but that's a choice for yourselves. But are you obviously just to confirm, because I'm looking at the application, are you obviously happy for that to be a condition on the license? I know it's in the application, but happy that that's a condition of the license, so we can't in 5 years' time a different licensee or different can take advantage of that.
Yes, so it specifically is drafted within the application, and it was in fact on the licensing notice that is to be a condition. We would expect that to be a condition. Do you mind if I just pick up a very modest point? Obviously, there are commercial considerations around all of this, but this isn't purely a commercial consideration. This is also about how can we operate. You're on mute, sorry.
Sorry, if I can just apologize, everyone. It seems like I picked a private room at County Hall that someone's booked.
Ah, sorry. Forgive me. I thought you were speaking to me.
I'm about to be kicked out of the room, so just bear with me. I am listening. I'm going to go sit and find another room or corridor. Apologies, Chair. Whether you want to just have a 2-minute recess.
Okay, we'll pause just for a second. Okay, so Karen, Tony, do you have any questions of the applicant?
I don't. Marcus has covered it pretty well, and the presentation from the solicitor was excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do you mind if I just finish just by answering the second part of Marcus's question? Fair that I do that. Or if, Marcus, I'm guessing you can hear me now. Yeah, the nod. Only this, just in terms of just the point about the commercial consideration for why we would close at 12, it isn't just a commercial consideration, it's fair to say. It is also actually about the licensing objectives and how we can manage this in such a way that we are unlikely to create any adverse impact. If it was purely a commercial decision, restaurant would be open later than midnight. So it's trying to strike the right balance, candidly.
Can I just ask, Matthew, I think this has been covered anyway, but the lavatories in the premises will not be open in the period applied for because the restaurant will be closed and therefore it'll just be the takeaway. Is that correct?
But that's exactly right. We I think it's fair to say we did sort of canvass this with the objector. They didn't seem too keen on it, and so we are open and available whilst we're open, closed after midnight.
Okay, thank you. Marcus, did you have any other questions?
No, I think I've no, that's covered every point that I've got at the moment. Thank you.
Okay, I'll move on to everybody else. Alex, do you have any questions? No. Kate? Does anybody else have any questions of the applicant? If you don't know how to put your hand up, just speak and I will let you ask. Judith, would you like to, Judith's camera isn't working, she says, so we'll forgive her that. And if you'd like to ask your question, Judith. You're on mute at the moment. No, you need to unmute yourself. No, Lee, you can't unmute her for me, can you?
Oh, no, we don't have that function, nope.
Oh, okay.
Judith, could you put it in the chat?
Yeah, okay, okay, I'm okay now. Yeah.
You're okay, Judith. Okay,
yes,
great.
Yeah.
Sorry, could you just introduce who you are, Judith?
Yes,
sorry.
I'm Judith Fletcher. I'm a councillor in Puriton Parish Council. Mr. Phipps mentioned noise and other nuisance, but he didn't mention smell. and that is something which most of the residents at the back of the site, which is slightly higher up than the site itself, have mentioned.
Just in answer to that, I'm afraid, Councillor, that isn't any part of the representation. The reason that I specifically referenced the law and the guidance in my submissions is that one can only develop the points that are fairly set out within the representation. And at least as far as I have seen thus far, and I appreciate that the bottles of urine might be said to be something, but that is not in the representation. And I appreciate there was a couple of residents spoke to parish councillors before the meeting on the 14th of October, and that the representation was drafted as a result of those comments. That's simply not before us today, I'm afraid.
Alex, did you want to comment at all on that?
Only to say that what Mr. Phipps says is correct. You are here to consider the application as on the information which has been provided. You do have the option, Chair, of admitting new evidence within your discretion, but I think we would need to know what that was before hearing it.
Okay. Judith, do you have any other questions of Matthew?
Not at the moment, no. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anybody else have any questions of Matthew? I'm not seeing anybody jumping up and down. Okay. We next move on to, thank you, Matthew. We next move on to responsible authorities. There are no representations from responsible authorities, i.e. the police or environmental health. So we move on to other persons. So it may be you again, Judith. Do you want to speak on behalf of the parish council?
I'm not sure whether Sally Diaz, our clerk, wants to.
Okay, Sally.
Sorry, just finding the mute button.
That's all right.
Thank you. I'm Sally Diaz, the clerk for Puriton Parish Council. And yes, I think I just wanted to elaborate a little bit more regarding our points on the noise disturbance. So obviously at the moment until 11 o'clock, there is a great deal of sort of hustle and bustle around the area. It's busy, but between the hours of 11 and 5 a.m, where traffic obviously lessens a great deal, and there are going to be customers obviously attending the site during those times, that even if they're not particularly noise, that noise is escalated because there isn't the standard noise elsewhere. So that's the consideration. And I think it was just mentioned before by Councillor Kravis that our concern with the noise disturbance would be of younger people gathering and being outside of the environment and talking and music, and with the greatest of respect. And I appreciate that training is taking place, but obviously if there are individuals working inside of KFC, that they would then have to go out and challenge that noise. Is that something that is realistically would happen certainly in today's society, if that would occur? And we're trying to look at prevention rather than cure, which is something that we have to consider for our residents as well. And so that's the point I wanted to make regarding the noise disturbance, but also from the aspect as well with litter and the environmental health points that have been raised. It was mentioned about having the restaurant open if that would be feasible, but again, it's wanting to think about security and for the staff that are working on site, but also if it's a difficult double-edged sword to try and balance, because if there isn't any lavatories available on site, they will use hedges and anything else that is available. That's a given. That's human nature. That's what happens. So I think that's what has been most important, is that if it is opened, then you could have lots of or people gathering inside with maybe a skeleton staff working during those hours. So it's thinking about the security element from that, but also from the point that if you don't, then they will go to the toilet somewhere. They're not necessarily going to drive off site. And it would be wonderful if people came and sat in their cars and ate their food and used the litter bins provided and left. But unfortunately, we've not seen that in the way that litter has been quite a considerable issue in and around the area. And unfortunately, as you said, because it is branded, there is a lot of litter that comes from KFC.
Thank you, Sally. Does anybody have any questions of Sally? Matthew?
Only one, please, Councillor. Fair to say that the representation makes no reference whatsoever to litter from KFC within it, does it?
No, I think you're right. It doesn't, no.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Marcus, do you have a question of Sally?
Yeah, thank you. Hopefully you can hear me okay, because I've got my AirPods in. You just keep going. I mean, litter thing aside, because obviously that's not in the initial representation and hasn't been brought up. And I think that's dealt with in quite a few issues. But you say about talking and music and people challenging, etc. But of course, we've got no evidence. We have to look at evidence and what has been going. We're talking about prevention rather than cure. Well, I'm not quite sure, because obviously if there was an issue later on the day, you could always ask to review the license. But as the licensing officer said, and as the applicant's solicitor Matthew said, there has been no complaints, and we've got no evidence to base that on, apart from being told in the representation and in this meeting that there's an issue. And I just wonder, why is no complaint ever been made to environmental health, or indeed to any other authority?
Sorry, I didn't catch that very well. Your microphone, the last little part of that section, I didn't hear very well. I'm sorry.
So the last little part of that section was, why has no complaints actually ever been made to environmental health or any other authority? And indeed, I'd bring in the police in that matter if there was antisocial behaviour going on.
Well, it hasn't been open between the hours of 11 and 5, as in for the noise between that side of things, which is our concern. But it has been raised through our unitary councillor, Councillor Healy. We have raised it with him, our concerns regarding the area as well, and the issues with people parking and using bottles for waste, which is probably not in the representation.
But then it's, as I think Matthew said, that if they're not open, then it can't be the bottles. No. Using bottles to have a wee in isn't necessarily down to them if they're not open. And I think I've just lost. Oh yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's been mentioned that there's been some TENS notices in October, and yet there was no issues and complaints from that. And so actually, in essence, KFC has been open for, I don't know how many occasions it was. It was 5 or 6 TENS notices, but that's maybe even 8 weekends, I assume. And again, no complaints from those, and there was no objections, I assume, to any of those TENS notices from anybody, either when they were applied for or while they were in operation. Is that correct?
Yes. No, not that we had received.
I think, to be fair, the TENS notices didn't extend to the early hours of the morning. I think they were only, I think Matthew said earlier, they're perhaps until midnight. Matthew, yeah. Thank you. Tony, did you have any questions?
I don't. Thank you.
Alex, did you want to make a comment or have any questions?
Yeah, I've just got one, Sally. I think we just need to actually get to the bottom of what your concern is. In response to Councillor Clavis's question, why is no complaint? You say because it's not open. but then you've also said it's happening. So you've talked about young people gathering, talking, nuisance, obviously the waste. Is it happening, or is it that you're concerned it will start happening?
So the concern is that it will start happening if it is during those hours.
Yeah.
But with regards to it has happened with regards to the issues regarding the bottles of pee. Yes, that has happened.
And you haven't reported that to anyone? Or as far as you know, residents haven't reported that to anyone? No. Okay.
Okay. Does anybody else have any
questions?
Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions of Sally? Not seeing anybody. Thank you, Sally. Right. We now come to the summing up. And ironically, we do this in reverse order. So, Sally, you're going to be asked to do, if you want to say anything else, you can do now, but it's just a basic sum up. Do you wish to say anything else?
No, I don't think there's anything further to add. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. The applicant can sum up if they wish. I'm sure Matthew will have something to say.
It would. I understand it's a breach of Law Society protocols for me not to take every advantage to speak at every opportunity. So I apologise. No, but I'll be brief and I will be serious for one moment. I think the key point, which, if I may say so, was touched on by Sally, is the phrase "what would realistically happen." You know, what is reasonable, proportionate to presume is the outcome here, not, respectfully, what could conceivably happen. If we don't recognise that every single licensing application has risk, I think, respectfully, that's a mistake. That's why it's a regulated activity. That's why we are here today. But if the mere existence of risk caused the application to be refused, well, that would cause every single licensing application in the country to be refused, because licensable activities have risk. I would respectfully suggest that what's critical then to considerations are who is managing these premises. Are they likely to take their responsibilities seriously? Will they engage with officers, or would they engage indeed with complainants or residents, or indeed the parish council, with whom we'd be perfectly happy to continue to engage? And because something is conceivable, it does not fairly mean that it is then going to follow inexorably. And then I'm bound to fall back to, and appreciate it's a fallback, that if there's a scintilla of doubt, that's what reviews are for. If we don't do it properly, it's fair to say, and I hope the Parish Council takes it as a compliment, we'll be back in front of you on a review with some explaining to do. So in all the circumstances, and based on the fact that it is each application on its individual merits, not the vagaries of the way in which other premises in the locality may or may not have operated in the past, we invite you to grant the application.
Thank you, Matthew. Licensing officer, would you wish to sum up, Kate?
Thank you, Chair. So Clock Unlimited seeks a premises licence for late night refreshment from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. daily at KFC at Dunball. Police and Environmental Health had raised no objections to the application. Puriton Parish Council objected, citing noise and public nuisance, along with lack of sanitary facilities. 10s throughout Fridays and Saturdays in October operated without complaints. There's 3 options available to councillors today: grant the licence as applied for, modify the conditions, or reject the application in whole or part. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Right, we now move to the time when we actually close the meeting to discuss a decision, so everybody will be asked to leave. You'll be welcome to rejoin for the decision, which I'll give you an indication of when that will be in a minute. Any decision will be made in writing within 5 working days, and a right of appeal to the Magistrates' Court within 21 working days. So if I could ask everybody to leave, I think we will reconvene at 11:15. Careful consideration. I can confirm that the application has been granted as applied for, bearing in mind we can only consider existing evidence, not on what might happen in the future. A full written report will be sent out within 5 working days and a right of appeal within 21 working days at the local magistrates court. I don't think I need to say anything else other than that at the moment. So just thank you all very much for your time and thank you for attending.
Thank you all very much. See you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.